Surely you know Joe Dispenza. He's one of the biggest names in personal growth, and it's for good reason. The guy is a brilliant thinker, but a lot of my students tell me they have a hard time applying his teachings in real life. Maybe you felt this way too. So in today's episode, I'm going to break down his core concepts and add my own suggestions to show you exactly how to start putting them into practice starting today. Joe Dispenza has transformed millions of lives with his research and teachings. He wrote a couple of best-selling books, Becoming Supernatural, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and You Are the Placebo. Millions of people have read his books, they've used his meditations, and yet a lot of people struggle to integrate what he's teaching. In other words, they understand the concepts but can't seem to do it. So Joe Dispenza principle number 1, your personality creates your personal reality. Now, if you've ever watched a JD video, you've heard him say this.
And your personality creates your personal reality.
And what he's talking about is how your beliefs over time have literally become your personality. So you've identified with belief systems. Let's look at some examples here. Example number 1. I want you to complete this sentence. Don't overthink it. When I was growing up, money was blank. 70% of people will say scarce or hard to make or never there. So most of us have a belief that money's hard to make, and over time, this belief becomes a part of who you are. It evolves into an identity. So money is scarce, money is hard to make. You become a person that struggles financially. You see other people who are able to make money, you compare yourselves to them, you think, wow, there's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? And over time, this belief becomes an identity program. How you think determines how you feel. How you feel determines how you act, and how you act determines the results that you do or do not produce. By the way, it's not just your beliefs about money, but it's your beliefs about everything. Beliefs about yourself, like that you're not good enough, or your beliefs about success, that you have to work hard to be successful. And before you know it, you wake up in a life where you're someone who doesn't have a lot of money, who compares themselves to other people, who's working really hard to get ahead in life but struggling. Your beliefs become your personality. And your personality becomes your personal reality. So to change your life, you have to change your personality. But to change your personality, you have to change your beliefs. And Joe wrote an entire book on this called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. What I see is that a lot of people get the idea, okay, I need to change my personality. I need to change my beliefs. But how do I do that? And so Joe focuses a lot on meditation as the way. Of course, I focus a lot on belief shifting, and that's why so many of our students say that by combining his work with ours, they're having such big breakthroughs. So I want to share with you a simple framework for shifting your beliefs. One of the most important breakthroughs in my personal growth journey was the moment that I realized, and it's going to sound like a 2-millimeter distinction, but I want you to really hear this. I realized one day that beliefs are decisions. And this was a game changer for me because I didn't know how to shift my beliefs. They kind of felt invisible. It was like trying to get my arms wrapped around a cloud. But I knew how to make a new decision. And I realized that my beliefs were just my decisions about life, about myself, about money. And I realized at that time that I could just make a new decision. And when you get that beliefs are just decisions, that opens up this space for you to shift a belief by making a new decision. And so people say, well, what decision should I make? If I believe money is scarce, what decision should I make? And the answer is it's always the opposite of the limiting belief. So you make a new decision that money is abundant, money is prosperous, right? Money can flow. There's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of money available to you. There's a lot of money coming your way. And the way that you get it to stick is to then ask yourself a simple question is, what evidence do I have for this new decision? You can say, well, gee, there's actually more money in circulation than ever before. There's more money printed than ever before. There's more types of money or resources or wealth than ever before. Bitcoin grew to $1 trillion faster than any other asset. There's all kinds of different cryptocurrencies. There's gold. There's businesses. You can own businesses through the stock market. Wow, there's so much money out there. It's like I'm living in a reality where I'm in one of those money booths and the dollars are floating around. I just didn't see them because I was incanting or affirming this idea that money is scarce. And so you make a new decision. And you find evidence for the new decision, and this starts to change your brain. It starts to change how you think. It starts to change the way that you perceive reality. It starts to change your personality. So your personality is your personal reality. If you want to change it, you have to change your beliefs. Joe Dispenza, core teaching number 2, elevated emotions plus clear intentions equals manifestation. So Joe has an equation here, and Joe's concept is most people try to manifest or change their life from the sympathetic nervous system. survival emotions: fear, lack, stress, overwhelm, anger, anxiety. And what he's saying is that the way reality works, the way you materialize or manifest or create any type of change, is that you have to feel the emotion of your future before it happens. And he talks a lot about the science of this. He talks about heart coherence and aligning your brain and your heart, and alpha and theta and beta waves. And elevated emotions are the key. So he talks about creating from love and creating from gratitude and creating from joy instead of creating from need. And so the way I would break this down is into a simple equation as well. I would say desire plus non-resistance equals desired result. Like desire plus non-resistance equals desired result. If you have a desire to make more money, to become healthy, to change your relationships, to change your life, to be more spiritually connected, to have more clarity, you will achieve that result as long as you're not in resistance to the result, meaning as long as you're not entangled with your limiting beliefs. The way that the human being operating system is designed is that the brain is a goal-achieving machine. So if you have a desire or a belief that's in alignment with what you want to create, you'll have thoughts that are congruent with that creation. You'll feel elevated emotions. You'll take intelligent and productive action, and given enough time, you will 100% of the time consistently produce a result. See, the unique defining factor of a human being is that we are creators. We create something from nothing. Just as fish were born to swim and birds were born to fly, we were born to create. We were born to take an idea and turn it into a material reality that we could see in our lives. And we do that through the process of non-resistance. Joe would talk about this as elevated emotion. For years, I was single, and I believed that there were no good ones left out there. I thought I was going to be single for the rest of my life. I thought there was something wrong with me. And when I started getting into this belief-shifting work, and I identified that those beliefs were resistance to the desire I had, which was meeting a soulmate, I used the tools that I teach today to transform those beliefs. And literally within weeks of that happening, through a series of coincidences and synchronicities and unconscious decisions that I made, I ended up in Sarasota, Florida, 2 hours from where I lived in Orlando, at a restaurant for a friend's birthday. I had made a decision 2 weeks prior that I was going to meet a beautiful Colombian woman and make her my wife. And at that restaurant, I met Carol Gutierrez Bear, the beautiful Colombian woman who is now my wife. Desire plus non-resistance equals desired result. JD core teaching number 3. Breaking the habit of being yourself. I told you he wrote a whole book on it. He talks about how we're addicted to our familiar thoughts and emotions, and our brain, literally our neural pathways, become automatic programs that create our reality, and we have to consciously interrupt these old patterns and become conscious of unconscious thoughts. Well, that sounds great, but how do you become conscious of unconscious thoughts? So one framework I want to give you, or tool, to become more aware of what you're not aware of, is to pay attention to the experiences in your life that create suffering, stress, anxiety, overwhelm, frustration, and notice your reaction. Notice what you think to the experiences that you're having. This is actually how you become aware of what you weren't aware of. This is how you identify limiting beliefs that you weren't conscious of. Most people think that the experience that they're having is causing them to feel and think a particular way. But the truth is, as Joe points out,
you'd have to become aware of your unconscious habits and behaviors and even what you say and modify them. And then you'd have to look at those emotions that keep you anchored to the past and decide if those emotions belong in your future.
So pay attention to your reaction to the experiences that you don't like, and you'll become aware of the limiting beliefs that are creating them. Now, I also want to give you another powerful distinction. It's called the 2 states of being. And you notice when you've moved into a primal state. There are only 2 states of being: primal states and powerful states. Primal states are states of being that don't feel good: stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. Powerful states are states of being that feel good: joy, curiosity, excitement, passion, compassion, empathy, peace, and calm. You're always in one state of being or the other, and you're never in 2 states of being at the same time. And so what's important to understand here is that everything that you want to be creating, the new personality, the breaking the habit of the old you, that's when you're in a powerful state of being. When you move back into a primal state, which is when you're in the sympathetic or fight or flight expression of the nervous system, that's when you're being the old you. That's when you're being resistant to the reality that you want to create. And the only thing that's creating that emotion are your thoughts. The only thing that's moving you into stress, anxiety, or overwhelm is your own thinking. And what we found is that 100% of the time, that thinking is a limiting belief, and it's not true. And so I have a living meditation practice that I do. I don't even actually always work on making a new decision and finding evidence for it using the tool I just taught you, the decision matrix. A lot of times I'll just be going through my day, notice that I've moved into a primal state. I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed. I look at the thought that's occurring and I'll identify it and I say to myself, that's not true. Hey, it's David. Just a quick interruption to your regularly scheduled episode by your favorite sponsor, moi. I want to tell you about my book. It is available on Amazon right here, right now. A Changed Mind, Go Beyond Self-Awareness, Rewire Your Brain, and Re-Engineer Your Reality. In this little book are all the frameworks, the tools, the methodologies that I talk about on this show and that I've used to actually change my mind and that tens of thousands of other people have used to transform their bank accounts, their businesses, their relationships, their health, their spiritual connection, everything that you want to achieve. This is the way to achieve it. And Amazon has done us a good one right now. It's significantly discounted. So you can go and pick up your copy, or better yet, pick up a copy for a friend too. There's nothing better than giving the gift of transformation right now. Hop on over to Amazon. There's a link in the show notes. And if you love the book as much as I loved writing it for you, do me a favor, let me know that and leave a review. And now back to your regularly scheduled episode. And this is one of the tools that I used actually to break my addiction. When I was drinking and drugging and sexing, I was doing those things because I was in a primal state. And rather than try to not drink or not drug or not sex, I started playing a completely different game, which was pay attention to what you're thinking. And every time I had a thought that was moving me into a primal state, I would realize it's not true. And I would move on with my day. Sometimes I'd do the transformative work. I'd say, well, if that's not true, then some form of the opposite must be true, and find an example for it. But sometimes I would just let go of that negative thought and not fall back into my old personality, but break the habit of being who I was. Joe Dispenza core teaching number 4, become greater than your environment, body, and time. And so Joe's concept here is that your environment will trigger automatic responses and that your body stores the habit. Your body will pull you back to familiar emotions, that your body is addicted to dopamine, your body is addicted to other stress responses, and that time itself keeps you focused on the past and the future instead of being in the present moment creation. And then we have to transcend these 3 things to create a new reality. Now, again, all of this sounds great. Let me give you a practical tool. One of the tools that I've been implementing recently is noticing when I'm speeding up. I'll be out going through my day, having meetings, talking to people, and I'll notice that my system has sped up. And you can check in with yourself right now. Do you feel like you're fast or do you feel like you're slow? Do you feel like you're aggravated or do you feel like you're calm? Because when your body speeds up, it means you're in an old pattern. And you can become present with the present moment and start to implement a living meditation by noticing when you're speeding up. In the Rosicrucian teachings, a secret order in the 1600s that developed an incredible spiritual framework and technology, they relate the mind to fast, cold, and edging God out, or the ego. They relate the heart to being slow, warm, and where intuition and connection with spirit is. And so throughout your day, if you want to be able to not be a victim of your environment, you have to notice when you're sped up and then stop and use some tools to slow down. Now, I get that a lot of times it could be hard to stop. You're in the middle of a meeting, you're in the middle of your workday, but you could find 5 minutes sitting in your car or 15 minutes when you have a break and implement some slow down tools. My favorites are actually grounding, meaning walking barefoot in nature, going into a hot sauna so that I can relax my body, a hard workout to shift my state, or my favorite on the go is a very simple HRV, heart rate variability breathing technique, a breathing in for 5 seconds through the nose, out through 5.5 seconds through the nose. In for 5.5 seconds through the nose, out for 5.5 seconds through the nose to downregulate my nervous system. And this is actually the tool that I used to manage my response to my triggering environment. I had a whole bunch of chronic health symptoms, and doctors were pointing at all different potential things, from metals to mineral depletion to mercury to mold. But the truth was my system was just operating consistently in high speed. And when I started implementing these slow down techniques, my system moved back into healing mode and it started to restore. Joe's core teaching number 5, moving from survival to creation mode. So Joe's concept is that survival mode equals stress hormones, narrow focus, and past-based thinking. Creation mode equals relaxed awareness, infinite possibilities, and is future focused. So you can't create a new reality from survival chemistry. And so he talks about how meditation and elevated emotions like gratitude shift you into creation mode. Now, this is literally what we talked about a moment ago in powerful versus primal states. When you're in a primal state, you're in survival mode. When you're in a powerful state, you're in creation mode. And so there's a shift opportunity. It's a 3-step living meditation that moves you from survival mode to creation instantly, right? Before you get into any type of goal setting or visioning activity, check in with yourself to see how you feel. If you're in a stress mode, you're not in creation mode. And the only thing that's causing that stress is your own thinking. Sit down with your journal, write down what the thoughts are in column 1. In column 2, write out the opposite of that thought. Write out the new decision to the limiting belief. And in column number 3, write out the evidence that you have for the fact that the new decision is true. This is how you actually shift from survival mode to creator mode, by seeing your unintelligent thinking as unintelligent, by seeing your limiting belief as untrue. Joe's core teaching number 6, reconditioning the body to a new mind. So Joe's concept is the body becomes addicted to familiar emotional states, and you have to train the body to new emotional signatures, and that repetition creates new neural networks. The body will eventually follow the new mind. And so here, I love what Joe teaches and find it very practical. I do a gratitude meditation. Rather than working with my limiting beliefs all the time, start to program my body for the states of being that I want to be in, those creator modes. And so I can sit down and think of a memory that brought me joy, or think of a memory that brought me excitement, or think of a memory that brought me peace, and really immerse myself in that memory. As I do that, I'm actually building new neural networks in my brain. I've referenced this study before, but there was a study done at Harvard in 2009. It was featured in Time magazine. They brought in piano players to play the piano and studied what parts of the brain lit up. Then they had them just come back in and imagine playing the piano, and the same parts of their brain lit up. So as you're experiencing life, your brain is recording everything and you're building memories. But through the act of visualization, you can actually build a memory of a future that has not happened yet, because your body does not know the difference between reality or imagination. And so as you're living in peace, as you're living in joy, as you're living in excitement, by focusing on these old memories, you start to literally transform your brain. And this is what I use to start to recondition my money beliefs. I would do a meditation every day and feeling abundant. I would imagine myself living in the place where I wanted to live. I would imagine myself as financially free, being able to help more people, growing my business, being a wealthy version of myself. And over time, as a result of both working on eliminating my limiting beliefs and starting to program my body, my reality started to change. And today I went from having 2 homes in foreclosure and feeling quite purposeless, being single for 10 years, having a failed business, to building a $40 million transformational company and a portfolio of companies that are changing the world, living in my dream home with my dream family as a result of this work. Now, last and not least, Joe's core teaching number 7, future self-visualization and quantum field access. So this is really high-level stuff. Joe talks about the field. He says your future self already exists in the quantum field. Now, for those of you who have heard some of my other episodes, this is what Neville Goddard talks about as the 4th dimension, or the unified field. All reality exists in the field. So that future version of yourself, that dream home, that big bank account, they all exist right here, right now. And those things materializing into your reality are dependent upon you matching the frequency of those things. You match the frequency of those things by having the nervous system and the brain, the thoughts, the emotions, and the beliefs of your future self. So Joe talks about going through detailed visualizations to make your future real to your brain. Again, he talks about heart coherence, connecting you to quantum possibilities. He talks about how time collapses when you embody your future self. And all of this is actually true. I think it's helpful to think about it in terms of the 4th dimension and 3rd dimensional reality. There are 2 realities that exist simultaneously. There's the reality you're living right now, and there's the 4th dimension where all potential exists. And the reality you're living right now has actually materialized from the 4th dimension. So you can think about it as a live stream. And that 4th dimension gets activated based on your habit of thought and your habit of emotion. And so if you want to be living a different future, you have to start acting like your future self now. You say, this is who I am, so this is what I do. You start doing what an abundant person would do. You start doing what a healthy person would do. You start thinking what somebody who's in their dream relationship would think. And you ask yourself in the situations that come up on a day-to-day basis, how would my future self handle this situation? And you do those things. As you do those things, you change who you are. As you change who you are, you vibrate at a different frequency and resonate and transmit at a different frequency. As you do that, you interface differently with the quantum field or the fourth dimension, and your third dimensional reality starts to change. So Joe's work is brilliant and can sometimes feel overwhelming because it's so impressive intellectually. And so for some people, it's hard to implement. People try to do everything at once, which is a big mistake, versus a systematic approach. And so they miss the real-time application component. And many people need a bridge between meditation practice and daily life, between visualizing their future self and transforming the limiting beliefs that are still holding them back. So hopefully these frameworks provide the missing implementation structure. This is a yes and with Joe's work, an enhancement, absolutely not a criticism. And if you want to go deeper, we've got a ton of other episodes on each piece of these frameworks that you can go deeper on and we can go deeper on together. So I hope you love this episode. If you're following along on YouTube, do me a favor, leave a comment, a question. I try to read and respond to as many as I can. Subscribe. Hit that bell icon so that you get notifications. If you're on the audio platforms, subscribe as well. Leave me a rating and review. And most importantly, if you love this episode, pay it forward. Somebody else needs to hear this today just like you did. This is not a do-it-yourself project. This is a do-it-together project. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next episode. Hey, it's David. Hop on over to davidbear.com. Click right here. There's also a link in the show notes, and sign up for our newsletter. You'll get immediate access to my free Mind Hack ebook, as well as a couple of trainings to help you master the inner game. This is a great way to stay informed and be a part of our community and be notified of special announcements. Click below, head on over to the website, get subscribed. If you loved this video, make sure you check out this one or this one, and I will see you in the next video.